Hi guys, welcome to video number 5 in our studying of the Odyssey. This one we are going to continue with the episode about the Cyclops. So if you remember, previously on the Odyssey, the men were trapped in the cave with the Cyclops because the Cyclops keeps it closed with a giant boulder. The Cyclops, remember, has his flock of sheep. The Cyclops keeps eating people, keeps eating Odysseus's men, and they have a giant wooden stake that is hidden in the cave as they are waiting for the Cyclops to return. And if you remember, Odysseus's plan is to blind the Cyclops with that wooden stake while he is sleeping. So that's where we're going to pick it up, right here. Here's our reading. At evening came the shepherd with his flock, his woolly flock. The rams as well this time entered the cave. By some shepherding whim or a god's bidding, none were left outside. He hefted his great boulder into place and sat him down to milk the bleating ewes, in proper order put the lambs to suck, and swiftly ran through all his evening chores. Then he caught 2 more men and feasted on them. My moment was at hand, and I went forward holding an ivy bowl of my dark drink, looking up saying, "Cyclops, try some wine." Okay, so when the Cyclops comes back from his day shepherding, he comes back, he returns with his flock, and then this time he brings in all of the sheep. Remember last time he just brought in the female sheep and the lambs. This time all of the sheep come in, including the great big rams. He eats a couple more guys, and Odysseus offers him wine, and he begins to get the Cyclops drunk. So let's look at this. "Cyclops, try some wine. Here's liquor to wash down your scraps of men. Taste it and see the kind of drink we carried under our planks. I meant it for an offering if you would help us home, but you are mad, unbearable, a bloody monster. After this, will any other traveler come to see you?" He seized and drained the bowl, and it went down so fiery and smooth he called for more. "Give me another, thank you kindly. Tell me, how are you called? I'll make a gift will please you. Even Cyclops know the wine grapes grow out of grassland and loam in heaven's rain, but here's a bit of nectar and ambrosia." So the Cyclops asks Odysseus what his name is. He says, "What is your name? How are you called? And if you tell me your name, I'll give you a gift." 3 bowls I brought him. Then he poured them down. I saw the fuddle and flush come over him. Then I sang out in cordial tones, "Cyclops, you asked my honorable name? Remember the gift you promised me, and I shall tell you. My name is Nobody. Mother, father, and friends, everyone calls me Nobody." Okay, so when the Cyclops asks Odysseus what his name is, he lies. He makes up a name. He says his name is Nobody. Let's see what the Cyclops says and what gift he gives him. "And he said, 'Nobody's my meat then, after I eat his friends. Others come first. There's a noble gift now.'" So the gift he's going to give Odysseus is he's going to eat him last. Even as he spoke, he reeled and tumbled backwards, his great head lolling to one side, and sleep took him like any creature. Drunk, hiccuping, he dribbled streams of liquor and bits of men. Okay, so when the Cyclops does eventually pass out and fall asleep, now is their time to act. "Now, by gods, I drove my big handspike deep in the embers, charring it again, and cheered my men along with battle talk to keep their courage up. No quitting now. The pike of olive green though it had been, reddened and glowed as if about to catch. I drew it from the coals, and my 4 fellows gave me a hand, lugging it near the Cyclops, as more than natural force nerved them. Straight forward they sprinted, lifted it, and rammed it deep in his crater eye, and I leaned on it, turning it as a shipwright turns a drill in planking, having men below to swing the 2-handled strap that spins it in the groove. So with our brand we bored that great eye socket while blood ran out around the red-hot bar. Eyelid and lash were seared, the pierced ball hissed, broiling, and the roots popped." That's some good eyeball popping literature right there, people. All right, so what happens is the Cyclops passes out. Odysseus sort of cheers on his men. "Come on, men, now's the time." He sticks the end of that wooden stake into the fire to get it nice and hot, so it's a burning hot poker. And they stab that into his eye. He says he twists it and grinds it and drills it, and the eyeball hisses and broiling. The roots are popping. Lovely stuff. And now we're going to have an epic simile here just to describe exactly what that eyeball sounds like. In a smithy, one sees a white-hot axe head or an adze plunged and wrung in a cold tub screeching steam. The way they make soft iron hale and hard. Just so that eyeball hissed around the spike. So a smithy is a blacksmith shop. And in a blacksmith shop, they have that they heat the iron to really, really, really hot temperatures so that it's malleable, so they can hammer it into shape. But when they need it to harden back up, they stick it into a cold tub of water. So when that super hot iron hits that super cold water, it screeches steam, it hisses, and all the steam comes out. And he says, and just in that same way, that eyeball hissed around the spike. It's a really clear image. You can hear it, you can see it. So what we have here is comparing the way that the steak sort of hissed and steamed in the Cyclops eyeball to the way hot iron steams and hisses when you put it in cold water. Okay, so there's the epic simile there. Let's come back to the reading. The Cyclops bellowed, and the rock roared around him, and we fell back in fear. Clawing his face, he tugged the bloody spike out of his eye, threw it away, and his wild hands went groping. Then he set up a howl for the Cyclops who lived in caves on windy peaks nearby. Okay, so now he pulls this thing out. He's not dead. He's howling, he's roaring, he's reaching around and groping around, trying to find one of these people. Okay, and he calls out for the other Cyclops who live on the island to come help him. Okay, he roars out for help. These other Cyclops, they do gather around. Okay, let's see here. Some heard him, and they came by divers ways to clump around outside and call, "What ails you, Polyphemus? Why do you cry so sore in the starry night? You will not let us sleep. Sure, no man's driving off your flock. No man has tricked you, ruined you. Okay, why are you calling us? What's going on? Are you okay? Is someone hurting you?" Out of the cave, the mammoth Polyphemus roared in answer, "Nobody! Nobody's tricked me. Nobody's ruined me." To this rough shout they made a sage reply. "Ah, well, if nobody has played you foul there in your lonely bed, we are no use in pain given by great Zeus. Let it be your father, Poseidon Lord, to whom you pray." So saying, they trailed away, and I was filled with laughter to see how like a charm the name deceived them. So as they gather around, they say, "Polyphemus, what's wrong with you? Who's hurting you?" He says, "Nobody's tricked me. Nobody's ruined me," because that's what he thinks Odysseus' name is. But of course, to the Cyclops outside, they misunderstand, thinking he has said nobody, and they're like, "Okay, well, if nobody's hurt you, then we're out of here. Pray to your father Poseidon. Quit bothering us." Clever, clever Odysseus. Okay, he was thinking ahead there. He knew that name could trick if the Cyclops called for help. All right, now Cyclops, wheezing as the pain came on him, fumbled to wrench away the great doorstone and squatted in the breach with arms thrown wide for any silly beast or man who bolted, hoping somehow I might be such a fool. So that doesn't work, so the Cyclops moves the boulder that blocks the entrance to the cave, but he stands in the way guarding the exit. So now he's hoping, well, I don't want to give that away, he's hoping that one of the men will now make a break for it. If he's sitting there in the breach waiting for them, he can, kind of have his hands out and grab them as they try to walk by. But I kept thinking how to win the game. Death sat there huge. How could we slip away? I drew on all my wits and ran through tactics, reasoning as a man will for dear life, until a trick came, and it pleased me well. The Cyclops rams were handsome, fat, with heavy fleeces, a dark violet. 3 abreast I tied them silently together, twining cords of willow from the ogre's bed, then slung a man under each middle one to ride there safely, shielded left and right, so 3 sheep could convey each man. I took the woolliest ram, the choicest of the flock, and hung myself under his kinky belly, pulled up tight with fingers twisted deep in sheepskin ringlets for an iron grip. So breathing hard, we waited until morning. He gets an idea, so he's like, okay, we stabbed him in the eye, he's weakened, he has opened the door, right? He's moved the boulder, but we can't get past him because he could still feel us. So clever, resourceful Odysseus uses the resources he's got at hand, and he uses the sheep. So what he says he does is that he actually ties 3 sheep together, all facing the same direction. Bah, bah, bah. Okay, ties them together, and under the middle one, there's a guy hanging, kind of like this. Okay, and the reason he ties 3 together is so if the sheep kind of walk out in 3s like that, the Cyclops will be able to feel on the top of them and maybe a little bit underneath on the sides, but he's not going to be able to feel that guy hiding under the middle one. And then Odysseus himself finds the biggest, maybe these are giant sheep because it's a giant Cyclops. He finds the biggest ram himself and just hangs on underneath, and they wait until morning when they know the Cyclops will let his sheep outside. When dawn spread out her fingertips of rose and rams began to stir, moving for pasture, and peals of bleating echoed round the pens where dams with udders full called for a milking, blinded and sick with pain from his head wound, the master stroked each ram, then let it pass. But my men riding on the pectoral fleece, the giant's blind hands blundering, never found. Okay, and so the plan works. You can see here he's got the men sort of hiding underneath the sheep, and as they move past the Cyclops, he pets each one, but lets it go. Okay, so the men are getting out quietly under these sheep here. Let's go back over here. Ooh, there we go. Oh no! What's happening? There we go. Last of them all, my ram, the leader, came, weighted by wool and me with my meditation. So the last ram out is the leader ram, the sort of alpha ram, I guess, and that's the one Odysseus is hiding under. The Cyclops patted him, and then he said, so let's go ahead and move to the next. There he is. Okay, there's Odysseus hiding under this last ram, and as this leader... as this alpha ram makes its way out, the Cyclops actually sort of speaks to it. Okay, the Cyclops patted him, and then he said, "Sweet cousin ram, why lag behind the rest in the night cave? You never linger so, but graze before them all and go afar to crop sweet grass and take your stately way, leading along the streams until at evening you run to be the first one in the fold. Why now so far behind? Can you be grieving over your master's eye? That carrion rogue and his accursed companions burnt it out when he had conquered all my wits with wine. Nobody will not get out alive, I swear. Oh, had you brain and voice to tell where he may be now, dodging all my fury. Bashed by this hand and bashed on this rock wall, his brains would strew the floor, and I should have rest from the outrage nobody worked upon me." So essentially what he says is, what's wrong, little sheep buddy? You're usually the first one out, and you're usually the first one back. I bet you're sad because that mean guy poked my eye out. It's too bad you don't have a brain and you don't have language to tell me where he is. Because if you could, then I'd get him and I'd smash his brains all over the floor for what he did to me. Folks, this is what we call dramatic irony. And dramatic irony is when the audience or the reader knows something that the character doesn't know. So we know, hello, Odysseus is hiding right there. Cyclops does not. That's why you sort of get that little feeling of irony, okay? We know something the character doesn't know. So let's see them escape here. He sent us out into the open then. Close by I dropped and rolled clear of the ram's belly, going this way and that to untie the men. With many glances back, we rounded up his fat, stiff-legged sheep to take aboard and drove them down to where the good ship lay. We saw, as we came near, our fellows' faces shining. Then we saw them turn to grief, tallying those who had not fled from death. I hushed them, jerking head and eyebrows up, and in a low voice told them, "Load this herd, move fast, and put the ship's head toward the breakers." They all pitched in at loading, then embarked, and struck their oars into the sea. Okay, so they, to add insult to injury, they actually steal the Cyclops sheep. They take them down to the shore. They have a boat down on the shore. There's a lot of men still there, and they're like, oh, yay, they're coming back. Look, it's been days. But then they sort of realize as they tally everybody who didn't make it back, their faces turn to grief. But Odysseus is like, no time, take these sheep, get on the boat, turn the boat around, we got to get out of here, because he knows that Cyclops is going to be quickly behind them. Okay, so they get out a little offshore here. Far out, as far offshore as shouted words would carry, I sent a few back to the adversary. So Odysseus cannot help gloating now that he's escaped. So he yells back to the Cyclops, "Oh, Cyclops, would you feast on my companions? Puny am I in a caveman's hands? How do you like the beating that we gave you, you damned cannibal? Eater of guests under your roof, Zeus and the gods have paid you." The blind thing in his doubled fury broke a hilltop in his hands and heaved it after us. So this pisses off the Cyclops. He breaks off a chunk of the hilltop. Now he's got a bead on where Odysseus is because Odysseus has shouted at him, and he chucks this huge boulder right out after Odysseus and his boat. Ahead of our black prow it struck and sank, whelmed in a spuming geyser, a giant wave that washed the ship's stern foremost back to shore. Okay, so here's the boat. The rock lands just in front of it, right? And sort of washes them right back practically onto the beach they were just trying to escape from. I got the longest boat hook out and stood fending us off with furious nods to all to put their backs into a racing stroke, row, row, or perish. So now they've got to push back, row, 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 really fast, get away again. So the long oars bent, kicking the foam sternward, making head until we drew away, and twice as far, so they get away again, a little further this time. Now when I cupped my hands, I heard the crew in low voices protesting, so now he's going to yell again. And the crew is like, "Shut up! God's sake, Captain, why bait the beast again? Let him alone. That tidal wave he made on the first throw all but beached us, all but stove us in. Give him our bearing with your trumpeting. He'll get the range and lob a boulder. Aye, he'll smash our timbers and our heads together." Okay, so they are pleading with Odysseus. Be quiet. Don't tell him where we are. He'll throw another one and we'll be dead. Does Odysseus listen? I would not heed them in my glorying spirit. He was feeling too good, too glorious with all of this. But let my anger flare and yelled, "Cyclops, if ever mortal man inquire how you were put to shame and blinded, tell him Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye, Laertes' son, whose home's on Ithaca." Okay, so now not only can he not help baiting the Cyclops, he wants to make sure the Cyclops knows who did this to him, and by doing so, he gives the Cyclops his real name. Okay, tell them Odysseus, raider of cities, took your eye. The poor crew members are like, "Please, sir, be quiet." But here we really see Odysseus' tragic flaw, his arrogance, right? We know that he is arrogant. He boasted about himself at King Alcinous's court, and here we see it. He wants credit for what he's done. Well, that's going to backfire, like fatal flaws always do. Let's see how the Cyclops reacts here. At this he gave a mighty sob and rumbled, "Now comes the weird upon me spoken of old." Weird is an old word for fate. Now this fate has happened that I knew about already. A wizard grand and wondrous lived here, Telemus, a son of Eurymus, great length of days. He had wizardry among the Cyclopes, and these things he foretold for time to come. My great eye lost and at Odysseus' hands. Okay, so the Cyclops has this realization. Of course, he doesn't have an eye right now. There we go. He has a realization, I was told this would happen. There used to be a wizard who lived here among us, and he foretold this. He told me that my eye would be taken and that it would be someone named Odysseus who would take it. But he didn't expect it to be some puny human. Okay. He says, "Always I had in mind some giant, armed in giant force would come against me here, but you, small, pitiful, twiggy, you put me down with wine, you blinded me. Come back, Odysseus, and I'll treat you well, praying the god of earthquake to befriend you. His son I am. For he by his avowal fathered me, and if he will, he may heal me of this black wound, he and no other of all the happy gods or mortal men." Okay? He's like, "Come back and I'll treat you well now, Odysseus, okay? I'm the son of Poseidon. I don't know if you know, but I'm the son of Poseidon." Odysseus has to keep shouting, Few words, I shouted in reply to him. If I could take your life, I would, and take your time away and hurl you down to hell. The god of earthquake could not heal you there. At this, he stretched his hands out in his darkness toward the sky of stars and prayed Poseidon. Oh, hear me, Lord blue girdler of the islands, if I am thine indeed and thou art father. Grant that Odysseus, raider of cities, never see his home. Laertes' son, I mean, who kept his hall on Ithaca. Should destiny intend that he shall see his roof again among his family and his fatherland, far be that day, and dark the years between. Let him lose all companions and return under strange sail to bitter days at home. So the Cyclops prays to his father Poseidon, get Odysseus. Now that he knows his name, he can call out specifically to Poseidon, get Odysseus. Make sure he never gets home. Or if he does get home, make sure it takes him a really long time to get there. Make sure he loses all of his companions. He loses his ship. He goes home under a strange sail. He has to get a ride from another ship to even get home, to bitter days at home. And when he does get home, make more trouble for him. So now finally we're seeing why Poseidon has such a grudge against Odysseus, right? Remember, this is all flashback. Odysseus is still talking to Alcinous's court, and he's finally told us why Poseidon harasses him through much of his journey home. It's because Odysseus blinded the Cyclops and then made the tragic mistake of being arrogant and giving the Cyclops his actual name. So, in the next class, when we return from Thanksgiving break, you will have an open note quiz. So you bring your notes from this video. I'll give you a few questions. Be prepared to embed quotes in them as always. So there's no actual homework questions you have to turn in when you come in, but do be prepared for that open note quiz. Have a great break, and I'll see you when we're back.